Hi guys, welcome back to Dialogue, the dialogue on analog music reproduction. And indeed today we're going to talk about analog music reproduction, but also digital music reproduction, since we're talking about MoFi. Yes, I know, this is kind of trite, everyone is talking about it, I have already done a video, here is a link, but there are a few elements that I think are worthwhile sharing with you. Why? Because these elements have repercussions. These elements touch the whole industry, which is why, even though maybe for a lot of people it's boring, it's very important and interesting to follow. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Okay, so for those of you who are not updated on the last facts, the last aspects of this gate, of this scandal, we have the statement from Jim Davis, which was posted, now it's already like 10 days ago, on the MoFi website, where they practically admit that there was these problems, this ambiguous statements, which unfortunately you did not understand. So obviously the attorney created a perfect letter in order to save them. But as we're going to see, not too much, not completely, because there are issues, there are problems connected to this huge scandal, this huge problem that is coming out, which I think once again is important. It's interesting because it goes to touch all the different aspects regarding vinyl, the vinyl community in general. In fact, little anticipation, we are going to have an interview with a very renowned and important label, but that's going to come up in the next weeks. Okay, so apart from this, everything was again amplified going outside of the vinyl community because an online article by Jeff Edgars came out where? On the Washington Post, yes, which was also depicting poor Michael Fremer in a strange way, we could say. In fact, he had a reaction to that on his new channel. And in this article, what is obviously the news here, the important fact, is that the In-Groove, Mike Esposito, was able to reach this achievement, making MoFi confess they were using digital. So I'm going to put the links of all these things that I'm talking about in the video description, okay? Also this article of the Washington Post, which is quite interesting, which gives you the scale of this, the impact that it's having. Okay, another important aspect, very interesting. I'm sure there are others, but I found that a class action lawsuit was filed in the city of Seattle in the federal court against MoFi-Fidelity and Music Direct, because we can't forget that Music Direct is one of their shops, their main online shops, where a lot of their stuff is commercialized, sold. Hence, the whole group is being aimed at, is being sued. So that's already a first step in that direction. I don't know if others have filed a class action. I think they are the first ones, and you're also going to find a link of this news and the article, the online article of this aspect. Another important aspect that took place during these last days is an article published by Robert Harley on the Absolute Sound, where he interviews Jim Davis. In fact, this was reposted on the MoFi website, so you can find it there. Once again, you're going to find all the links in the video description. And there are a few passages very interesting regarding the answers of Jim Davis to the journalist. And I would like to go through a few things. Now, first of all, I think it's one thing important to underline is that the first title that was ever cut by MoFi-Fidelity from a digital file from DSD was Tony Bennett, I Left My Heart in San Francisco. Okay, 2011. He also goes on stating that all captures from 2011 to 2014 were only DSD 64, which that's the resolution of a Super Audio CD. Not that good. But things were also released afterwards because, for example, I'll tell you now afterwards where you can find the complete list of all the releases, because you can find it also on the MoFi website, but they're all scattered. You have to check each one. Instead, there's a cool project, and I'm going to talk about it afterwards, where you can find all the different listings, all the different releases. And in fact, for example, the Stevie Ray Vaughan release of 2019, the Texas Flood, was unfortunately, and that's a one step, that's unfortunately captured with a DSD-64 converter. So they did that during this period of time, 2011, 2014, and unfortunately in 2019 they released their one-step, ultra high quality, very expensive release, but it's coming from a normal Super Audio CD type of release resolution, which is decent, but it's not as the new ones of DSD-256, which is 4 times that. 4 times that, much better. So that's already something important to keep in mind. In fact, after that, they started to use the Merging Technologies Horus analog to digital converter with DSD-256. Much, much better. Okay, so apart from this, I want to read the question, that a very important question that Mr. Harley asks Mr. Davis. Why does Mobile Fidelity limit the number of copies it produces, particularly when you can cut as many lacquers as you want when you are cutting from a DSD file, and where on the precious original master tape isn't an issue? A very good question. And I want to read the whole answer of Jim Davis, okay? Because I think it's very important, and afterwards I'll tell you why. Like many things in the more complicated than it appears music business, limits on production runs can be based on numerous factors, such as licensing agreements, paper management, jackets, boxes, etc., and even material shortages. During the pandemic, we know this happens. As some may be aware, the only factory in the US producing lacquer blanks burned down several years ago. In the case of our one-step releases, we based our limits on our estimates of demand. When we decided on a limit of 2,500 copies for our first one-step release, Santana Abraxas, we had no idea how many $100 records we would sell. Let's try it. They're gonna fall for it, maybe. Since that release, we have consistently increased the limits of each release. Oh, you did, so you could. You can, okay? You can increase. Based on estimated demand. One principal misconception of the lacquer cutting process is that with DSD file, you can just push play and cut a lacquer and be done. No, nobody thinks that. Obviously, because there's an analog process, just like every other type of vinyl production. That is simply not the case, I agree. There are many additional steps between the DSD capture and before a record is complete. Absolutely. To cut the lacquer, the DSD signal is fed into an analog EQ. Obviously, you can't cut 1 and zeros. This analog domain equalization is done by our cuttering engineer for each and every cut, like every other vinyl production in the world. Once the lacquer is plated and stampers made, test pressings need to be pressed, quality control and approved. This process is repeated for every set of lacquers. Now you don't say. Since only one set of stampers can be made from each one-step cut, you can see that producing every larger quantities of these records requires a considerable amount of time and work. In addition to mastering cost, decisions need to be made on packaging well before the release date. Now it's true they're using one step, so that's a little more difficult, and you're going to have less mothers and less fathers, the other way around. So obviously there is a limitation in production. Nevertheless, you can start over how many times you want. We need to move on the next title. Regarding limits on regular vinyl titles, we set them based on our estimated demand. Once again, he's saying people are asking and we obviously are giving. So don't worry. As long as there are people willing to pay $125 per a one-step release, there are always going to be more and more copies. Look at Thriller. They started with 2,500 copies, and we're now with Thriller with 40,000 copies. So maybe there isn't that much a limit. Okay. So many of these limits were set prior to the pandemic, which completely blew all demand estimates out of the water. Regarding wear on tapes, we have an obligation to help preserve what are secret documents of our musical history. These moments were captured on a now fragile physical medium. Master tapes are a finite resource. Absolutely, we agree. That's why we have limited editions. That's why we pay so much for AAA 100% analog releases. That's why we pay for that a lot. We are privileged to not only be stewards of these recordings for a short while, but also to be a conduit during that time to present them in what we feel is their best light, which is DSD. And in fact, in the interview, he explains all the problems they encountered and why DSD is the optimal choice, which that is not a problem. No problem at all. Go ahead, okay? Go ahead. But we must remember that the cost here is the main problem. And people keep forgetting this. I'm seeing videos in Italy. I'm seeing videos on other channels who are focusing on the digital debate. People in the comments are focusing on the digital debate, on how stupid our audio files. Sure, that's all part of the game. But we must remember here that they were asking huge quantities of money while they were doing what any other label is doing to do a vinyl release. All this he's describing isn't a problem, isn't an issue, if not the same issues for any other guy around who's doing vinyl records. We have to remember, keep this in mind. Otherwise, we are completely being fooled. People are focusing and want to say something against what our people are seeing, just declaring, oh, it's not that big of a problem. I bought them. I like them. Where's the problem? Well, you invested a lot of money. If you don't care, maybe somebody else does. Because if you get only one every once in a time purchase, okay, I wasted $100. No. You know how many people and collectors are buying the whole one-step series? That's a lot of money, guys. A lot of money. So I think it's almost offensive to declare this as they are doing something special. No, you are not doing something special. You are doing something normal, absolutely normal. The only thing different is the one step, which in Europe is called DMM, and nobody's making so much fuss about it. Actually, DMM is even better because they're cutting directly in copper. So, come on, you guys. I mean, this whole question is going in different directions. It's supposed to focus on the price issue because that is the biggest problem. And I think, in fact, the lawsuit they filed is going to focus on that because you have been ambiguous, but now you have reached a huge number of copies for several releases. Do the math. That's a ton of money. Well, probably now much less since so many people understood what's happening. So I hope this, once again, is going to change all this approach. Okay, so apart from all this rant that I just did, because I think it's very important, as you can see, and I'm very passionate about this argument, I do want to signal where you can look, where you can search all the different MoFi releases. Not all been updated. They're slowly doing that at MoFi. But there's a project called Pure Neo, which I have been informed from the group who is doing this, completely free. They're putting all the high quality recordings. Now they've put analog productions and all the MoFi releases, and almost all have the source. So if you want to rapidly, because I repeat that on the MoFi site, there's everything, but you have to go one by one. At least that's what I found. I didn't find a list. We're instead on Pure Neo. I'm going to put the link in the video description. You will see that you have all the different releases by year, and you can easily check all the different characteristics, but also the source from what the lacquer was cut from. Woo! Okay, I'm sorry I was a little bit passionate about this, maybe a little too much. But once again, I think it's important to underline this and not just remain calm saying, they sound good, it's all okay. No, because it's not analog. And remember, music is born analog.
Well guys, if you're enjoying my videos and you're enjoying my channel, please consider to subscribe by clicking the black and white logo here below. Also, don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll never miss an episode and you will become a true member of the analog community.